Raw Takes with Andrew Hoty, officially Tuesdays and Fridays now. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy the content that we provide. And if you like the show, please check us out on social media. All the social media links on Facebook, X, and Instagram are in the description below, so make sure to check those out. But before we get into some more Raw Takes, let's just check in on that Raw Takes and You contest really quickly. Hey everybody, Andrew Hoty from Raw Takes with a special announcement. Would you like the chance to win a $50 NFL Team Shop gift card? Well, here's how you can do it. Enter the Raw Takes and You giveaway, and it's very, very simple. All you gotta do is take a quick video of yourself for about 30 seconds to 1 minute, and you just gotta explain a hot topic in sports or a debate topic or whatever you feel is necessary as long as it's sports related, and send it to the show using the hashtag HotyRawContest, or just send it to me directly on Hoty Raw Takes on Instagram, or you can find me at Hoty Andrew on X. Submit your video and let me know that you're interested in possibly winning that $50 NFL Team Shop gift card, and you'll be entered to win the contest. We'll also play your video right here on Raw Takes with Andrew Hoty. Not just will you win the gift card, though, you'll also get a chance to debate me on the show. But will you win that debate is going to be the question. Make sure to enter the Raw Takes and You giveaway. It's really simple. Just use that hashtag, reach out to me directly, and send me a video 30 seconds to 1 minute, and you could enter to win that NFL gift card and a chance to debate me. Also, every edition of Raw Takes with Andrew Hoty is brought to you by Window and Bath Depot in Westlake, Ohio, the highest rated remodeling group right here in Cleveland. You got to just visit their showroom in Westlake, Ohio, and discover the Depot difference. Window and Bath Depot. That's right, the Raw Takes and You contest will take place between February 11th and March 4th. All you have to do is submit a video online. It could be on Twitter or Instagram or X preferably, but if you have something on YouTube or Facebook, use the hashtag HotyRawContest, or you can even send the video to reach out to me and I'll post it on our account for you. We already have a few submissions that came in a little early, but we're going to post those on February 11th, and you can watch those videos right here on Raw Takes with Andrew Hoty, and go like them. I'll encourage you to go like them, because the ones that get the most likes combined out of all the social media platforms, we're going to combine all the likes on the videos. Well, the one that gets the most likes will get an NFL Team Shop gift card and a chance to debate me on the show. But you won't win that debate. Just kidding, you might. You probably won't, though, because it's me. And we'll let the viewers decide that. Like, comment, and subscribe as always. We've been getting a ton of comments on the shorts lately, so I want to thank everybody who's been watching the shorts. Much appreciated, as I did a Super Bowl prediction kind of early already, but we'll talk a little bit about the Super Bowl later on in the show. Let's just get right to some of the NBA news at the trade deadline, and we'll start with my Cleveland Cavaliers. They are trading for DeAndre Hunter. The reports indicated DeAndre Hunter will be coming to the Cleveland Cavaliers in exchange for Georges Niang and Caris LeVert. I do like Caris LeVert. I'm not a huge fan of Georges Niang. Georges Niang was the worst man on that 15-man roster. But having said that, if Georges Niang is a player you have and you send him down on a way as a trade piece for a guy like DeAndre Hunter, then absolutely you got to do it. And now Trae Young is essentially in a wasteland with Atlanta because they've traded, everything away? And they just got some second-round picks in return. The Atlanta Hawks are kind of in a funk right now, and they look like a team that's going nowhere relatively quickly, but they still have Trae Young on the roster, obviously, and there's still a lot of work to do with the Atlanta Hawks. That is a mess right there. I don't know what else to say besides it is just a mess when it comes to the Hawks. But having said that, when you look at the Cleveland Cavaliers, this absolutely makes the Cavs better. They needed a wing. You looked at that Boston game that they lost the other night. You need another wing, and I think this is an absolutely massive piece for the Cavs when it comes to the postseason, because when you want to compete with a team like Boston, you play them one more time in the regular season. But, when it comes to the postseason and seeing that that's a possible Eastern Conference Finals matchup, when it comes to the Cavs, another wing is definitely necessary, and I think that is a guy that's going to be physical on both ends of the floor. And when it comes to the Cavs, you already have your core four offensively. You have Moby defensively. But you could still argue there's still a little bit of softness on defense. And I think DeAndre Hunter is such a physical basketball player that's going to help the Cavs on the defensive side of things as well. Because when you look at what the Cavs were doing the other night, Kristaps Porzingis was really just having his way with the Cavs. Jason Tatum was too, to a degree. But Kristaps Porzingis was the player that really concerned me with the night he had against the Cleveland Cavaliers the other night. We do play the Celtics in Boston in about a couple weeks. I want to say 2 weeks. I think it's after the All-Star break. So we have one more matchup with the Celtics. And I think those Knicks games, We're going to play the Knicks a few more times. That's going to be big for the Cleveland Cavaliers because the Knicks look like a team that could also compete with the Celtics, and we saw what the Knicks did to us a few years back in the postseason. So if the Knicks end up being an Eastern Conference Finals opponent, if the Cavs get there, possibly a divisional round opponent or the divisional rounds NFL and Major League Baseball, the semi-finals in the Eastern Conference, the Eastern Conference semi-finals, they face the New York Knicks, then yeah, that's another concern because that means Boston catches up to you. The Cavs are still 5 games ahead of Boston. I still think they're going to win 60-plus games, but that's another thing that concerns me too because the Knicks are a physical team too. Karl Anthony Towns is now there. You could argue the Knicks got better just as much as the Cavs got better, and the Knicks pretty much dominated you on both ends of the floor a few years back when the Cavs were taking them on in that one playoff series and lost in 5 games. So the Knicks still concern me to some degree when it comes to playing the Cleveland Cavaliers, not as much as the Boston Celtics. And as I said, Kristaps Porzingis the other night was essentially just, he was on fire. There was nothing. The Cavs had no answer for him. I think DeAndre Hunter now being in the lineup, that gives you a much more physical defensive player where you could absolutely expect a guy like Kristaps Porzingis to maybe be a little bit more limited. Maybe you can get a Jason Tatum, have a little more defense on him. Jaylen Brown when he gets going. Although Jaylen Brown, despite having some good offensive production, he kind of had a rough night overall. There was some frustration against the Cavs, and there were some calls that didn't go Celtics' way or didn't go the Cavs' way, and it was an interesting game. But it's clear to me that the Celtics are definitely still a much better collective unit and team that's already been there and done that, unlike the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are still on the rise and still have a good opportunity. I think the DeAndre Hunter move is going to absolutely help the Cavs become more competitive. We'll have to see what takes place, though. There's still a lot of regular season left to be played, and the Cavs, they're already going to be above 500. So it's looking really, really good on that end. And now let's get into that crazy game in Motown that took place on Wednesday. The Detroit Pistons and the Cleveland Cavaliers, that game was back and forth in the fourth quarter, especially that last minute. Obviously, George Niang making a bad call, and now he's no longer a Cleveland Cavalier. He defended the wrong guy and get the wrong foul on a three-point shooter, so that ended up costing the Cavs a little bit. But Darius Garland saved the day. If Darius Garland doesn't make that shot, there's a chance that the Pistons win in overtime. There really, really is. So Darius Garland had the shot heard from around the world the other night. The Cleveland Cavaliers staying on top of the Pistons. And the Pistons, I want to give them a ton of credit. I still like J.B. Bickerstaff, even though it was definitely time to move on from him here in Cleveland. I still think he's doing a tremendous job with Detroit. Cade Cunningham is definitely a rising superstar. They just got Dennis Schroeder, who was on 4 teams in essentially one day, going from Golden State to Utah to Miami. Well, Golden State to Miami to Utah and then to Detroit. So I think that's an addition for the Detroit Pistons that'll help them keep themselves competitive in the mix. Detroit, I see making the playoffs this year, maybe in the play-in tournament. I don't see them as any real threat, but I think J.B. Bickerstaff deserves a ton of props because that organization was in the wasteland last year, and he turned them around relatively quickly. And Cade Cunningham is really, really good. I think we knew that from the last few seasons anyway, but Cade Cunningham is definitely a rising star in the league. I think you're going to have to do a lot to build around him, though, if you are the Detroit Pistons, and they have a lot of work to still do. But granted, they played the Cavs physical, and I think JB still has some beef with the Cleveland Cavaliers after he was let go last year, so I think he's putting whatever he can against that opponent in particular, and we might see a little bit of a Cavs-Pistons rivalry brew a little bit from this. And you know what? I'm all for it. They're right up the road down I-90 over to I-75, so why not? Let's brew a little bit of a rivalry with the Pistons. The geography is there. It's always good to take them on, and J.B. Bickerstaff, as I said, doing a tremendous job there, but Darius Garland with the shot heard around the world, and he was the second leading scorer in that game. Evan Mobley really went off. Craig Porter Jr., you got to give Craig Porter Jr. some love in that game. He was awesome. That was just a wonderful basketball game from start to finish overall. The Cavs, though, what it does have me concerned is that last minute. Now that George Niang is not on the roster to foul three-point shots, I am absolutely much more relieved than I was now because that was a critical mistake. And now we sent him to the Atlanta Hawks, so there's nothing to worry about in terms of that now happening. But that last minute was still concerning. We were essentially giving that game back to the Pistons. And as I said, if it wasn't for Darius Garland with that game-winning three-point shot, I'm not sure the Cleveland Cavaliers come out of that game in overtime. So props to the Darius Garland in particular, Evan Mobley with another big night, but the Cavs and the Pistons, that game was close the entire way through. I think this is really the Cavs figuring themselves out moment of the season. They're really trying to figure out who they are as a team, and once they get to the postseason, they're going to have to figure out how they stay consistent with it. Because there's a lot of teams when you look at the bottom of the standings right now, you could be seeing in round one as the 8 seed. You could see Orlando, who kind of has collapsed after a wonderful start to the season, but they're collapsed and they're absolutely nothing like they were in November and December. And that was even without Paolo Banchero. And now that Paolo Banchero is getting healthier, it's not the same. The Orlando Magic have absolutely collapsed. So that could be a great opponent in the first round, and we already know we match up well with Orlando. Detroit, I actually would like to see Detroit in the first round. Part of me thinks, that J.B. Bickerstaff, Kenny Atkinson now rivalry, and right up the road. You can go back and forth between all 7 games if it goes 7 games. If it's the first round for the Cavs, hopefully it doesn't. You want to take care of them in 4 or 5. But, that's another series I would love to see in the first round of the playoffs. I also wouldn't mind seeing a great series with Indiana, possibly. They got some good players. Pascal Siakam having a great year. I still think Tyrese Halliburton's really good when he gets the Jets blazing. I would like to see a series with Indiana. I think that would be really good and a lot of offense, especially from 2 offensive-minded coaches in Rick Carlisle and Kenny Atkinson. So I would love to see what the Cleveland Cavaliers would do in a series against Indiana. So that's an opponent I possibly would love to see. And the Atlanta Hawks, I personally may not want anything to do with them because of those 2 losses at the beginning of the season. There's a chance they may not even sniff the play-in. But, Atlanta is another team that might be a good matchup for the Cavs. DeAndre Hunter and then George Niang and Karis LeVert facing their former teams. That could be another intriguing matchup, I think, with great storylines. So I'd love to see what would happen there, too. But the Cleveland Cavaliers' first-round opponent I still think is TBD, obviously. But whoever it may be, I still think the Cavs, in order to really prove something, they better win that series in 4 or 5 games. It better be no problem whatsoever. So, a lot to look forward to for the Cleveland Cavaliers. A great addition of DeAndre Hunter to the roster. The Boston Celtics are a threat, and I think when they lost to the Celtics on Tuesday night at home, that showed that they got to have an answer for Kristaps Porzingis, A. You're probably not going to have an answer for Jason Tatum, but can you limit the rest of the Celtics and what they're able to do? Even Derek White made some really impressive shots for Boston at the end of that game. And Derek White is a really good guy off the bench. You talk about guys like Derek White. You talk about Al Horford. You talk about Peyton Pritchard. That's a really good bench in the NBA, too, compared to what the Cleveland Cavaliers have. And, you have Ty Jerome. You have Dean Wade. Dean Wade starts most of the time, but still. You have Max Strus. You have all these guys in this collective talent on the bench. You look at Max Strus, Dean Wade, Ty Jerome, how you could rotate those guys. DeAndre Hunter now is going to be part of the rotation. You look at Craig Porter Jr., who had a massive night against Detroit. There's a lot of guys on the Cavs roster you could look at and say, you're the 6th man. Take us there. Take us there with Donovan Mitchell and see what happens. And Evan Mobley playing defense and Darius Garland getting the offense going. I mean, Darius Garland is such an offensive production machine. Let's just be real about that. You could argue the best offensive player, the best overall player is Donovan Mitchell. But the best offensive player from pure production this year is hands down Darius Garland. And Evan Mobley absolutely on the defensive end. And now you have DeAndre Hunter to complement that. And Kenny Atkinson, we already know what he's doing with those rotation pieces. The Cleveland Cavaliers are the real deal. And it's going to be interesting to see what takes place with this chemistry in the postseason. At this point, you made the trade for DeAndre Hunter. It's Eastern Conference Finals or bust. Period. That's where I stand with the Cavaliers. But let's talk about some of those other teams in the NBA and some of the other moves. Bogdan Bogdanović got traded to the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers continue to be one of the retirement homes of the NBA. Jimmy Butler also heading to Golden State. And I haven't even mentioned that one yet. I know I talked about Dennis Schroeder being on 4 teams in 2 days, but the big reason why is because Jimmy Butler is now with the Golden State Warriors, which was a team I don't think Butler wanted to go to. But, at this point, that's still another retirement home in the NBA. Steph Curry, already past his prime, still really good, but not the same Steph Curry. And we know the Golden State Warriors probably weren't going with him and Draymond anywhere. Even though they had a great start to the season, they're probably not going anywhere anyway. And I don't think Jimmy Butler really puts them over the hump that much. I think if Jimmy Butler was going to go anywhere to contend for a title at this point, it might have been the Los Angeles Lakers to play with Luka Doncic and LeBron James, but I don't know if they would have the assets to trade for him. But that's another move by the Golden State Warriors that makes them slightly better. But do I view them as a real threat? Not at all. They're not the Los Angeles Lakers even right now, let alone Denver, Memphis, Houston, or Oklahoma City. They're none of those teams. You look at what Miami got in return for that deal. They traded away a lot of those pieces. Tyler Hero's their sole all-star this year. So the Miami Heat still have a really good culture. And heck, that's another possible first round series with the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's a team that has really, really good culture, and we know what Spoelstra and Pat Riley are doing. So we'll have to see what takes place with the Miami Heat as well. But they tend to work a lot with a little. And Jimmy Butler was pretty much the soul of that team the last few seasons, especially when they were the 1 seed a few years back. So we'll see if the Miami Heat are able to turn a little into a lot, because we know they've done that before and they could probably do it again. Bam Adebayo is still a really good player as well. So Miami, though, I think they definitely are going to need a superstar once again. And I don't think they've really been the same since Max Strus came to the Cleveland Cavaliers as well, when they went on that finals run back in 2023. All right, so that's the trade deadline. A lot of pieces on the move. Chris Middleton was another one. He went to the Washington Wizards. That's not going to help the Wizards one bit. And the Cavs play the Wizards tonight. So the Cavs can easily take care of the Wizards, even though they just got Chris Middleton. I mean, you look at the Cavs and all the guys that aren't going to be playing tonight, excluding the core four. The core four is enough to beat the Washington Wizards. So the Cavs should easily win this game tonight in the nation's capital, and we'll see what takes place with Chris Middleton being essentially the new superstar of the Washington Wizards. I'm really concerned about that. It's going to wreck the league. We're all done. Chris Middleton is a Washington Wizard. Oh boy. Not at all concerned about that whatsoever. All right, let's move on to the Super Bowl. Big game coming up. Patrick Mahomes taking on Jalen Hurts for the second time in the big game. And there's going to be great commercials, and it's also the Super Bowl no one wanted to begin with. I mean, everybody loves Saquon Barkley. I think that's the most likable thing about this Super Bowl. And, maybe in Cleveland we do like Kareem Hunt as well. So part of me is rooting for Kareem Hunt, I guess. Kareem Hunt better be the leading rusher for the Kansas City Chiefs and score like 4 Super Bowls and become the MVP in order for me to be happy that the Kansas City Chiefs won. Patrick Mahomes can't be the factor. It better be Kareem Hunt. That's just me. I don't like Travis Kelce either, even though he's a Cleveland native. But please, this is really the Super Bowl no one wanted. And we're all going to watch it anyway. Let's just be honest for what it is. We're all going to tune in. The NFL knows that. As much as we all hate the Super Bowl matchup between Kansas City and Philadelphia, we're all tuning in. And we're all going to watch it, and we're going to see what transpires. I already made my prediction. I have Kansas City winning this game 31-28. I think it's going to be massive for the Kansas City Chiefs to just keep a roll going and win their 3rd Super Bowl in a row. I mean, what else is there to say? It's important for them to keep the roll going because it's legacy at this point. It's legacy for Patrick Mahomes. Now he's officially chasing Tom Brady. Even though Tom Brady already beat him in a Super Bowl, he's chasing him for the GOAT conversation. He needs 7 rings in order to compare his resume to Tom's. He needs 8 to possibly make a case that he's better than Tom. Andy Reid is essentially chasing Bill Belichick at this point. And you could make a legitimate argument if the Kansas City Chiefs find their way to win 7 Super Bowl titles, or 6 at the very minimum, even just 6, because Bill won 6 with Tom, then you could already make a case Andy Reid might be better than Bill Belichick, because not only did he win 6 with Mahomes, he ended up having so much success without Mahomes prior. And what success has Belichick had with absolutely no Tom Brady? Not much. A couple winning seasons and that's it. And you would say, okay, Andy Reid never went over the hump without Patrick Mahomes. But damn it, he had multiple contending seasons with Donovan McNabb. He had contending seasons with Michael Vick. He had contending seasons with Alex Smith. He did a lot with a little. And the only time we could really say we saw Bill Belichick do something in New England without Tom Brady, or maybe 2 times. I'll say two seasons in particular. And that's not including his Cleveland Browns tenure. I'm talking about strictly the New England Patriots here. 2008 with Matt Castle. Patriots still missed the playoffs that year, but they won 11-5. And in 2021 with Mac Jones. And Mac Jones ended up being a bust. But that rookie season of his was pretty good. And New England ended up collapsing at the end of that year anyway. And obviously the Buffalo Bills made the statement that they're now the reign supreme team in the AFC East. So to me, this is about legacy for Andy Reid. This is about chasing Tom Brady for Patrick Mahomes. If Patrick Mahomes gets 7 Super Bowls but has a three-peat in there, his resume compared to Tom Brady, you can start to make GOAT arguments. And let's be honest, I think the NFL loves that. The NFL absolutely loves a conversation, such as the GOAT conversation, to be talked about around the league. So if Patrick Mahomes is doing well, the NFL thinks they're doing very, very well, just getting you to talk about it. So, if you're mad about this Super Bowl matchup, I have two words of advice. Either don't watch it, which I wouldn't encourage because I am one of the biggest sports junkies in the world. I don't want to encourage people to not watch sports. But if you're really that upset about this matchup, don't watch it. Or, number two, stop talking about the Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady GOAT debate. And that's going to be what the NFL wants you to do. Those are the two things the NFL wants you to do. So if you're mad at the NFL for this matchup, don't watch the Super Bowl and stop talking about Mahomes and Tom Brady and creating more of a conversation. Or even making the hatred of the Kansas City Chiefs even more part of culture right now because it's become so much part of culture, hating the Kansas City Chiefs. And listen, I hate the Chiefs. I'm still going to watch the Super Bowl. I don't love this matchup either, and I am going to get suckered in and watch on Sunday. But still, those are the preventative measures if you're really upset, deeply upset. I'm talking about like you're just pissed off that this is what's happening in the NFL. Then those are your two options right there. But let's be honest, if we're really that pissed off about this matchup and the Kansas City Chiefs and the possible dynasty, we wouldn't be tuning in on Sunday. We're all tuning in. A lot of us are probably going to be rooting for Philadelphia just to put an end to the Kansas City reign of terror. And we'll see what happens. But there's no doubt Patrick Mahomes is an all-time great. He's already better than Peyton Manning and Drew Brees and I don't want to say Joe Montana yet. I mean, he might need a fourth ring in order to do so. But, you know, Drew Brees only has one Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre. You know, you can go down the list. He's already better than all those guys. Let's just be real. So it's going to become now the GOAT conversation between Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. And that's exactly what the NFL wants. They want that discussion. It makes them more money. It gets the conversation going about their league. And all 31 other organizations in the league are going to hate that. But it is the current situation. The Kansas City Chiefs are already in the middle of a dynasty, probably heading to their first three-peat in NFL history. We'll have to see how this transpires, what the aftermath of it is, and if you're that deeply upset about it, then just don't watch the Super Bowl. Or just not talk about Kansas City in the limelight anymore. It's just become a problem, I think, in terms of the fans, because we love to hate, and we love to hate the Kansas City Chiefs. We love to hate that organization, and that's exactly what the NFL wants. It's because it's what they are. The Chiefs are a really, really well-run organization. The Hunt family deserves a ton of credit for absolutely running a stellar franchise. And that's where they are. They're all great. We love to hate in sports. And that's what it comes to when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm taking the Chiefs to win the game 31-28 over the Philadelphia Eagles. I personally really like Nick Sirianni. I personally really like Saquon Barkley. And, you know, there's a lot of memes on the internet saying Saquon Barkley is the one thing we all love about this game. I don't mind Jalen Hurts either. I'm rooting for Philadelphia because I think Nick Sirianni has taken a lot of crap over the last few years, and I think it's unrightfully so. I think he's done a tremendous job with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think we should be more grateful that he's a head coach in the NFL, and I think a Super Bowl stamp will officially approve Nick Sirianni being a really good NFL head coach. And I think the only way for him to do it is if he wins the Super Bowl because they wanted him gone last year. The Eagles went 11-6, and people in Philadelphia were chanting for him to be fired after one playoff loss. Why? If you won't make the playoffs the next year, you have a legitimate argument. But why do you want that guy fired after a playoff loss, after a Super Bowl appearance? That happens in the NFL. Where did the Los Angeles Rams go after they won the Super Bowl? 5-12 in 2022. They went nowhere. They went nowhere but the couch. No one was calling for Sean McVay to get fired. So why did Nick Sirianni deserve to go after going to the playoffs and losing one playoff game? But, you know, it's apples and oranges. He's back in the Super Bowl, and I think a lot of that conversation has subsided. I haven't heard much about it. But I think Nick Sirianni's underrated. I think Jalen Hurts is still really good. I think when you look at Saquon Barkley and what he's brought to the Eagles' offense, even though the Chiefs' defense is really, really good with Karlaftis and Jones and all those guys, it's going to be hard for them to stop a guy as good as Saquon Barkley. So I'm interested to see how that transpires with the running game. But having said that, Kansas City's still Kansas City. I have them winning this game 31-28 over the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, before we wrap up the show, let's talk a little bit briefly about the Cleveland Browns in town because they've been making a lot of headlines. Myles Garrett puts in that trade request. A lot of people appeared to be supportive of Myles Garrett doing that, including myself. And then he went down the media line and said a lot of ridiculous things in my view. And now I'm not so sure I'm on Team Myles like I was before, especially because of one comment he made about contacting LeBron about wanting out of Cleveland or whatever. LeBron James, do you think he handled that well, Miles? LeBron James was vilified for 4 years when he was with the Miami Heat. He came back and everyone loved him again. But that didn't go very well in Cleveland. So if you're going to try to force your way out into a situation like that, that's not going to be what people in Cleveland like. And listen, when it comes to trading Myles Garrett, you get assets out of him. You could possibly start to field a team, but you're thinking about 2026 and years beyond. You're not thinking really about the 2025 season. Are Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry really in a position where if they trade Myles Garrett and only get assets out of it, that they should be the ones making decisions on it when they already are essentially in a win now or bust mentality? Because that's really what the 2025 Cleveland Browns season is going to be. It's going to be how good can the Browns be to stay competitive through December and Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry can keep their jobs. That's what it's going to be. It's not going to be, hey guys, the Browns are just a rebuilding team. They're going to go 5-12. I think fans are willing to accept the rebuild process, but that's not going to be good enough for Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry. If they want to keep their jobs, they're going to have to win next season. They're going to have to find their quarterback and win. And maybe you trade away Myles Garrett, get enough good assets, and you find the rookies that are good enough to help make this team competitive next year. But we've seen no evidence that Andrew Berry could draft exceptionally. We've seen no evidence that rookie teams with a lot of rookies could really have sustained success outside of maybe the Houston Texans and Washington Commanders the last few years. How lucky you're going to be that you're going to be one of those two teams. They're going to get a C.J. Stroud-style quarterback or a Jaden Daniels-style quarterback or get a Tank Dell-style wide receiver. I mean, you have Jerry Jeudy on the roster already, but now you're wasting his prime. You're wasting Jerry Judy's prime. You're wasting David Njoku's prime. And David Njoku came out and said, listen, Myles, I have a plea for you to stay here. He talked to Bleacher Report yesterday and plead for Myles to stay. And props to David Njoku for that. And, listen, city loyalty and all that crap, I always throw it out the window. These are pro athletes. It's a business. I don't care about them being loyal to the city. I care about them just winning football games. And David Njoku put in a trade request a few years ago and said, hey, buddy, stay here with the Cleveland Browns. This has been our thing. We've been here 8 years. And that's what good teammates should do. So I'm not even worried about the city loyalty aspect of things when it comes to Myles Garrett. What I'm concerned about is, being a good teammate. If Myles Garrett gets traded, what are the Browns going to get in return? If Myles Garrett stays, how do we convince him to stay? And how do the Browns get competitive in 2025? Right now, if you look into Myles Garrett's point of view, it doesn't look like the Cleveland Browns are anywhere near contending for a Super Bowl. And the Deshaun Watson situation is a mess. And if he steps on the field next year, I think you're going to have chants of boos, people pissed off. And Deshaun Watson probably won't play due to injury anyway, and hopefully he recovers from his injury totally fine. But having said that, Deshaun Watson cannot step back on the field in the Cleveland Browns uniform. He just can't. Or else the city is going to not be happy with the Cleveland Browns. And you could already argue they already aren't. Last year was that bad. We talk about 2023 going 11-6 and 2024 going 3-14. Even though we were on the playoffs, things felt good with Joe Flacco in 2023. We were in love with Kevin Stefanski and his play calling and how he was as a head coach. We were in love with it. We were all regretting ever wanting him gone in 2023. And then 2024 happens. We see that the Deshaun Watson situation was a huge problem. And now we're in this situation in 2025 where it looks like this team may be better off rebuilding than contending. And Myles Garrett saying, I want no part of rebuilding. I want to go contend. So that's going to be on the Browns to figure out. David Njoku made a plea for him to stay. But if David Njoku's plea somehow works, or Andrew Berry figures out a way to keep Myles under contract and get some good assets to make this team competitive in 2025, how much will it mean by the end of the season if we don't make the playoffs? Or if we do make the playoffs, we go on a quick run. But having said that, I'm not so sure I'm on Team Myles as much anymore, comparing or asking for LeBron James's advice and all that, because that didn't ever go over well in Cleveland. So that's just my thoughts on that. And also, Denzel Ward came out, I believe he told Cleveland.com, that if Myles doesn't want to stay, I'm not sure I want to stay. So that could be another key piece. Do you get another trade request from another guy in his prime who you're wasting? Think about the talent the Browns have, and they went 3-14. The only thing that might be saving everything now is watching Jameis Winston's media highlights on Fox Sports. I mean, he's doing a tremendous job covering the Super Bowl in New Orleans right now. So I want to give Jameis Winston all the props in the world. He didn't win us football games, but he's still really, really fun. So that's the only thing that's putting a smile on my face when it comes to the Cleveland Browns right now. We still got to go find that quarterback, and we'll have to see what transpires with Myles Garrett. Raw Takes and News starts February 11th. Send your submissions. Use that hashtag HotyRaw contest. Hope everyone has a wonderful day. Thank you for tuning into Raw Takes now. Tuesdays, Fridays. We'll be back this upcoming Sunday with my reaction to the Super Bowl on Short Take Weekend. Have a good one, everybody.